Coming up on The World Today. The Taliban announces a new Afghan government as fighters fire warning shots at protesters in Kabul. UN says basic services in Afghanistan are collapsing, warns of impending humanitarian crisis. Plus, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is stoned while out on the campaign trail for the upcoming federal election. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. The Taliban have announced an interim government in Afghanistan, now to be known as an Islamic Emirate, to be led by one of their founders. Making the list is an FBI wanted militant as interim minister, Sirajuddin Haqqani, who has also been named head of the militant group known as Haqqani Network. The new government will be led by Mullah Mohammed Hassan Akhund, with Taliban co-founder Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar as deputy. Other appointments include Mullah Yaqub as acting defense minister and Mullah Abdul Salam Anafi as second deputy. The announcement of the acting cabinet is a key step in the formation of a Taliban government. It comes 3 weeks after the Taliban took control of most of Afghanistan. In the meantime, the Taliban have fired warning shots to disperse the crowd at a large protest in the Afghan capital, Kabul. Video footage from the scene shows people running to safety, while heavy gunfire can be heard in the background.
Women have been protesting for the past week, but on Tuesday, men also joined their calls for equality and safety. Hundreds of protesters took to the streets of Kabul to denounce the Taliban rule and demand women's rights. Protesters also chanted anti-Pakistan slogans, as many believe neighboring Pakistan supports the Taliban, which the country denies. The Taliban responded by firing gunfire into the air. Scores of people were seen running for cover as volleys of gunfire could be heard. Guards at a nearby bank opened its basement car park to dozens of women who sheltered from the gunfire for about 20 minutes. These protests are the biggest challenge to the Taliban's authority in Kabul so far and include bold and direct criticism of the group. The demonstrations come a day after Ahmed Massoud, the leader of anti-Taliban fighters in Afghanistan's Panjshir Valley, called for a national uprising by civilians against the militants. Many protesters showed support for the resistance fighters, who claim are still fighting off the Taliban in Panjshir. Taliban on Monday claimed victory in the province, the final pocket of territory which has remained outside their rule. The militants who swept to power last month as the United States withdrew its troops after a 20-year war banned girls and women from schools and most work when they last ruled the country from 1996 to 2001. The group has now said women will be allowed to work across important sectors of society in line with Islamic law, and their rights will be protected.
And our U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken denies reports that the Taliban blocked Americans attempting to fly out of a northern Afghan city, but says the group had not allowed charter flights to depart because some people lacked valid travel documents. Blinken was speaking at a news conference in Qatar. His comments come as reaction to reports emerging over the past few days that 1,000 people, including Americans, had been stuck at Mazar-i-Sharif Airport for days, awaiting clearance for their charter flights to leave.
We've been able to identify a relatively small number of Americans who we believe are seeking to depart from Mazar-i-Sharif with their families. We have been assured, again, that all American citizens and Afghan citizens with valid travel documents will be allowed to leave. And again, we intend to hold the Taliban to that. They've upheld that commitment in at least one instance in the last 24 hours. With a family that was able to leave through an overland route, and we are not aware of anyone being held on an aircraft or any hostage-like situation in Mazar-i-Sharif. So we have to work through the different requirements, and that's exactly what we're doing. We believe the number of those who have American citizenship, many of them dual nationals, who remain in Afghanistan, is somewhere around 100. We're in direct contact with virtually all of them. We have case management teams assigned to them to make sure that those who want to leave can in fact do so. And as my colleagues have said, we're holding the Taliban to the commitments that they've made to ensure the free passage and safe travel for anyone who wants to leave Afghanistan, starting with any American citizens who wish to do so, Afghans who worked for us, including the special immigrant visa applicants or visa holders, other Afghans at risk.
Well, let's bring in the VOA's Anita Powell in Washington. Anita, it's great to see you. I just want to begin with the announcement of the new Afghan government. Apart from the name Sajuddin Haqqani, are there any other names ringing warning bells in the White House or with the Biden administration?
Well, I want to be clear that this announcement, which just happened in the last hour or so, has not received any direct response yet from the White House. They haven't mentioned any specific names. But as you note, it is notable that among this government, this very hardline government, are the son of Mullah Omar and the son of the Haqqani Network founder. And those are sure to, these people have been on sanctions lists and belong to designated terrorist groups. So this is obviously a previously stated concern of the White House. The other thing that I just want to zoom out and look at is that the White House has said that they urged the Taliban to form an inclusive government. And what's notable about this government is it's pretty hardline. It is not ethnically diverse. It's mostly Pashtun, not Hazara, Uzbek, Tajik, the assorted ethnic groups that are also present in Afghanistan. And there are no women in senior positions. And so it's not maybe the individuals, but it is this in totality that might, get the attention of the State Department and the White House.
With this announcement, though, now, there's a huge question. Last night, President Biden said it's a long way off before the U.S. recognizes the Taliban as a legitimate government. In terms of relations and getting a handful of Americans out of the country, are there any indications how the government would be relating with the newly announced government?
Well, I think we just saw it right there with the Secretary of State in Doha today, talking to actors in the region. That appears to be as close as we've officially, formally gotten so far. Today, Press Secretary Jen Psaki was asked about this, and she said, there is no rush to recognize the Taliban. We're waiting to see what they're going to do. The U.S. has been very clear. The administration, the State Department has been very clear about what they hope to see from this new government. They hope to see inclusion, they hope to see no restrictions on Americans trying to leave, and they also hope to see protection of the rights of women and girls. And so they are taking a very cautious wait-and-see approach. And I think, unfortunately, as much as we might want to see results now and see something definitive, we're all going to have to wait and see.
All right, then, VOA's White House correspondent, Anita Powell, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you.
Well, still on the situation in Afghanistan, the United Nations is warning the country is facing collapse of basic services and food and other aid is about to run out. More than 500,000 people have been displaced internally in the country this year as the Taliban has swept across the country.
Basic services in Afghanistan are collapsing and food and other life-saving aid is about to run out. As we heard, the Secretary General has warned of a humanitarian catastrophe. We urge international donors to support this appeal fast and generously. The high-level event on the 13th is a key opportunity to pledge such support. If properly and fully funded, the appeal will deliver the following: critical food and livelihood assistance to nearly 11 million people, essential health services to 3.4 million people, treatment for acute malnutrition for more than 1 million children and women, water, sanitation and hygiene interventions for 2.5 million people, protection, including for children and survivors of gender-based violence for 1.5 million people. There are also projects addressing children's emergency education, as well as shelter and other non-food assistance.
Away from Afghanistan, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson says a new health and social care tax will be introduced across the UK to pay for reforms to the care sector and NHS funding in England. Boris Johnson says it would raise £36 billion for frontline services in the next 3 years and be the biggest catch-up programme in the NHS history.
But having spent £407 billion or more to support lives and livelihoods throughout the pandemic, from furlough to vaccines, it would be wrong for me to say that we can pay for this recovery without taking the difficult but responsible decisions about how we finance it. As a permanent additional investment in health and social care, it would be irresponsible to meet the costs from higher borrowing and higher debt. From next April, we will create a new UK-wide 1.25% health and social care levy on earned income hypothecated in law to health and social care, with dividend rates increasing by the same amount. This will raise almost £36 billion over the next 3 years, with money from the levy going directly to health and social care across the whole of our United Kingdom.
Our London correspondent, Julian Alanka, joins us now. Juliana, it's good to see you. How are Britons reacting to this, especially the fact that it breaks one of the Prime Minister's manifesto pledge?
Good evening, Tenny. Gosh, it's pretty difficult to gauge public opinion on this, and I think that's where Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the populist leader, has struck gold, because he knows that the health and social care, particularly social care, which predominantly deals with elderly and disabled people in care homes, has suffered tremendously during the pandemic. We've got in excess of over 130,000 deaths, and most of them did occur in these places. And of course, we had the clap for carers last year during the summer, and I think popular public opinion was that more needs to be done to fund this service. And the Prime Minister realises this, which is why he's pushed through this rise. And of course, to quote Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who was at the dispatch box in a pretty fiery tone this afternoon, nobody knew, or no government had written in the coronavirus pandemic recovery in their manifesto. No Conservative government wants to raise taxes, but it's pretty clear that the Health and Social Fund does need a reform, so it's got to be paid. I think the biggest criticisms are coming from backbench Tory MPs, as well as the Labour opposition party led by Sir Keir Starmer. They are concerned that the rise in national insurance is going to disproportionately affect younger people. National insurance is a levy that everybody pays if you're working here in the UK. If you're earning less than £50,000 per year, it's charged at 12.5%. If you're earning more than that, it's charged at 2%, whereas on income tax, you pay 20% under £50,000, and then you pay 40% over £50,000. Yeah. So there are some suggestions that perhaps this money could have come from somewhere else, income tax, or it could have come from inheritance tax, where those who earn more pay more. But of course, the Conservative Party have decided to sway towards voters, and they've gone for something that is going to hit everybody equally.
Juliana, just very quickly, with the huge impacts of the pandemic, is this enough to address current issues in the health sector?
Well, I suppose Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party would like it to be so. As we just heard with him speaking there, this is set to raise £12 billion per year, £36 billion over 3 years. I think what's missing in the headlines is the fact that this money that's being raised is going to first go towards the NHS, so not social care in care homes. It's going to go to the NHS to make sure it addresses all of the backlog. So, Boris Johnson is gambling gambling on this and hoping that it will do so. It's certainly something that I think every Briton knew would be coming one day, but perhaps just not by way of national insurance.
All right then, Juliana, we appreciate the update. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been hit by a stone thrown by protesters during a campaign stop. He was returning to his bus after visiting a brewery. He was not injured. Mr. Trudeau called a snap election in mid-August in the hope of gaining a majority government for his left-of-centre Liberal Party. But his campaign has been disrupted by demonstrations against COVID-19 vaccine mandates and other restrictions. Just over a week ago, the Prime Minister was forced to cancel an election rally after a crowd of angry protesters ambushed the event. And still speaking of elections, with the help of the United Nations, authorities in Iraq are taking measures to prevent voter fraud in national elections next month. The UN envoy to Iraq, Jeanine Enis Plascheret, says that Iraqi political parties and candidates must abstain from intimidation, voter suppression and bribes to ensure the October federal elections are free and fair. Speaking to reporters in Baghdad, she outlined efforts by Iraqi electoral authorities with technical assistance from the UN to close loopholes from the past that have undermined public trust in the electoral process.
The world is watching closely. Like the Iraqi people, nobody wishes to see a repetition of the events in 2018. In other words, the importance of credible Iraqi elections is widely recognized. What we do know is that in 2018, political parties did interfere and did distort, force or shape the election results. What we're doing now is to design processes, in support of IAC, again, we are just supporting and advising, is to organize the processes and systems in such a way that this is no longer possible. A new electoral system has been put in place. Voters will now vote for individuals, not just for political parties. Before, there were 18 constituencies, now there are 83. For the first time, and to emphasize IHEC's independence, judges are serving as election commissioners.
Some updates from the COVID-19 pandemic now. Over 5.5 billion vaccines have been administered globally against the coronavirus, though total number of deaths are put at 4.5 million. The US still leads the highest number of cases in a 28-day total, followed by India and Iran. Here's the global update. COVID-19 daily infections in Sydney have fallen for a third straight day, but still lingers near record levels as the outbreak spurred a spike in vaccination rates. Officials have promised residents in Sydney, the epicenter of Australia's worst coronavirus flare-up, more freedom once vaccinations reach first 70%, then 80%, as a lockdown now into its 11th week fails to quash the Delta variant.
Don't be left behind when we start opening up, because when we open up at 70% double dose, it will be only for those who are vaccinated. So there's time now to get your first dose and then fit in your second dose before New South Wales starts opening up. And I just want to make that message as strong as possible.
In neighbouring New Zealand, authorities are finalising arrangements to get more coronavirus vaccines as the country relaxes restrictions in all regions outside Auckland, its largest city. Authorities say schools, offices and businesses can reopen outside Auckland from Wednesday, but masks will remain compulsory in most public venues. Auckland will remain under hard lockdown for at least another week. The city of 2 million people is where the current outbreak began and has not yet been contained. In the Philippines, beauty salons, nail spas and other personal care centres in Manila will reopen on Wednesday after being closed for almost a month as the government relaxes lockdown restrictions. The move comes despite the Southeast Asian country reporting record infection numbers as it battles the Delta variant. Daily cases in the past 30 days alone accounted for more than a fifth of the country's total infections of over 2.1 million, while deaths have exceeded 34,000. A tropical storm Constance has made landfall in the central Philippines today, packing winds at 150 kilometers per hour. Its first landfall on the eastern province of Samar earlier today, and is forecast to slowly weaken as it moves northwest while traversing the Philippines islands. Videos recorded in the town of Dimasalan showed damaged houses near the coastline shortly after the storm made another landfall in the province of Masbate. The National Weather Agency is warned of heavy to intense rain, along with the possibility of floods and landslides in parts of the central Philippines in the next 24 hours. Well, bad weather is also being experienced in Nepal as we see devastating floods triggered by the strongest monsoon rains of the year. The downpours started to batter the Kathmandu Valley on Monday afternoon, causing a rapid rise in water level in Bagmati River, a major river flowing through the valley. According to local reports, the Kathmandu Valley received 105 millimeters of rainfall within 4 hours. Water in Bagmati River exceeded the warning level on Monday morning. The floods inundated hundreds of houses along the riverbanks in the capital region, and many roads were waterlogged. The monsoon season in Nepal falls from mid-June to mid-October every year, with frequent rainfall having great impacts on production and people's lives during this period.
Bah, c'est le tour qu'Alain Robert il fait quasiment tout le temps. BNP, là, comment ça s'appelle?
Well, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Spiderman. He's back, and I'm talking about the French climber, Alain Robert, who is at it again, this time climbing a skyscraper in the company of 3 other climbers in the Paris business district of La Défense.
I guess it is the idea of Leo, and then I said, why not? After that, I said, maybe 2, it's okay. And then Marcin is a big fan for so long. He wanted to come. And then I didn't, it was breaking my heart if Alexis was not coming too. Then I said, okay, let's also, let's do it all together.
He's one of my childhood heroes. He's a huge inspiration, so obviously it's a big, it's an honor, you know, it's an honor. Because I've been watching Alain Robert when I started climbing, when I was like 8 years old. And at this time, I didn't even think I could even meet the guy.
Alexis, I'm fucking nearly 3 times your age.
Every superhero needs a sidekick, right? And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tenyola Shuboale. Bye for now.